sign? Yes. Do that. All right, it is 7 o'clock. Actually, it's 7:04. Yeah, that clock, John? Clocks are on.
It's perfect.
Welcome, everybody. It is August 27, 2018, our regular scheduled city council meeting. Thanks to everybody for being here. And roll call, please.
Michael Hillman.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
Casey Stokes. Here. Bob Boland.
Here.
Mark Buick.
Here.
John Curtis. Jason Siegel.
Here.
Please stand with us for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have an agenda in front of us. We do have a couple of amendments to make. One, I don't see it on there, but we're going to swear in our new officer, Andrew Fresquez. So let's do that right after.
Not tonight.
Not tonight, sir. Oh, we're not doing that tonight?
No.
Why not?
Well, he's already been sworn in, and the
Right.
official one's in September.
Okay. I guess
He's just
not.
here because he loves everybody.
Well, thank you.
That's awesome.
Trying to get some brownie points.
That's right.
Okay, good. Sign purchase, so we'll do that under, we'll just do that under Andy's report for approval for the sign. So somebody will have to make a motion. Did everybody get this? I got
That's administrator action item request that we got.
We'll just put it under Andy, so we'll put that in there. Also on the agenda, but then the only one, everybody got one. It says Virginia Canyon Open Space, but it is Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. So we need to start calling it that, so when we do our motions, to make sure we do it so it's not referencing something else. All right? Anything else on the agenda change, council? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the regular meeting on August 27th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We'll move on to, does anybody feel they have a conflict of interest tonight?
Yes, item 14, resolution number 10, I'll excuse myself.
Okay, Bob will excuse himself. All right, Mr. Bob. We have minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the amended regular meeting minutes from August 13th, 2018 with the addition of the attendance of Joe Rivera from the law offices of Murray Dahl and Kuchenmeister.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second on the table, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any
Move
opposed?
to approve the salaries for July and bills for August 27th, 2018.
Do I have a second? Motion and second, discussion. Anybody have anything they wanna ask about?
I think this is police department, the bike race. Do you, Officer Sonnenberg, do you know anything about the bike race reimbursements?
I do not, sir.
Okay, no worries. That was the only thing I had on my notes. Andy, do you remember what that was about? The reimbursements for the bike race in the police department?
Yes, I think,
Yeah.
Sandy, will you go up and explain that better than I could?
So, Evergreen Bike Club paid, Frost and Baylor, I think, to do traffic control.
Oh,
But
okay.
instead of Evergreen Bike sending those guys a check directly, they send it to us.
Oh, I see.
So then I
I
have to
see.
turn around and pay them.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I paid them as independent contractors, so
Okay.
it's just a straight $200.
All right. So it's basically a pass-through because they wrote the check to the wrong person.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know why they do it
Okay,
that way, but.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anybody have anything else? Hearing none, roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Casey Stokes. Yes. Bob Boland.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
John Curtis. Jason Siegel.
Yes. Do I have anything under unscheduled public comment? Ramsey. You ready to come up
Hi.
to the podium? You have to state your name and your address.
Very formal.
You're on television too.
And you're on television, so smile and wave at the camera.
Smile. Thank you, sure. My name is Beth Ramsey. My address is 1082 Silver Creek. I am a part-time resident up in St. Mary's. I apologize for not requesting to be on your agenda. I didn't realize I would need you until I went to the city clerk's office today. I would like to bring a Take Me Stay Warm campaign event up to Idaho Springs. For those who may not be familiar, everyone's looking blankly. We do an event where we gather winter coats, gloves, scarves, hats. We put a note on them that says, "I'm not lost. If you need me, please take me with you and stay warm." It's just a way to get winter clothing to people who might be lower income or in need so that they get winter clothing. And we just hang those typically, there's been a big event in Denver that we've done for many years now. We hang them kind of in the trees of Civic Center. At some point later, if there are any left, we take them to the shelter. So in Idaho Springs, Centura Health has graciously agreed to partner with me, both to do it and they will take any leftovers. They're kind of unofficially running a closed closet out of the medical clinic here in town because we don't have the service anywhere else. So Loaves and Fishes sort of unofficially does a little bit. The people have kind of jumped in, but we don't really have a way to distribute warm clothes up here. There's not really any
So I'm
business.
gonna ask a question. Who is this supposed to be targeting?
Anyone who needs a winter coat, but very definitely low-income people. I certainly want to make sure, I haven't gone that far until I had sort of an official permission to do it. Certainly we have children who are on the school lunch program, so definitely we want to make sure that they all have coats and gloves and hats and whatever it is they might need. So we just gather them up and put them out and let people take them at will. So we don't officially check anyone or make sure that they have, some sort of guidelines. If they tell us they need a coat, we take their word for it, let them take a coat. They're not gonna hurt anything if they take a coat.
What I'd like to do is just have a count, when do you want to start the, it would be October?
We
pretty
wanted to
quick.
we wanted to do the event, actually start on the last weekend in September, which I think is the 29th, 30th, kind of before the cold weather really hits. Since it's an inaugural event up here and we're not quite sure what will happen, if everything is sort of gone in a day or two, that would imply to me that probably we didn't put enough out and I would want to do it again the first weekend in October and get more out there. If there's a lot left, then I'll take them down and then take them over to Centura Health or to Loaves and Fishes to be distributed in a different way. But there may be people who don't go to the food bank or don't go to the resource center who really do need a coat. So we just kind of wanted to make it very, very accessible.
Okay. Well, what I'd like to do is put this on a work session so the council can discuss it. So it's really easy and then we'll get a decision and get back with you.
Okay?
All right, thank you very much. Sounds like a great program. Okay. Public comment. We have our auditor in the house. That's been working very closely.
The revision on the one I gave you, so disregard that.
Why don't we collect those?
Yeah.
Let's, so we
Yeah.
can.
So somebody get a hold of one and say,
Yeah, I'll take it. Take all the old ones. They're the same color, so I just got big X on it. I like it. Any other old ones? Old one? Any others? Thank you.
It always happens.
Thank you, Sandy.
Well, good evening, guys. My name's Drew Lear. I work with Wilshire Mayberry down in Inglewood with the firm there. Just kind of touch on some housekeeping things. With our processes that we do during the audit, kind of auditing your expenditure process and your payroll process, we didn't find anything out of line with like segregation of duties or anything like that that we usually test. Everything looked solid there, so there's nothing really to worry about there. Just keep doing like you guys have been and keep monitoring how you have been, and we think that should be just fine going forward. Just to touch on the changes as well from Sandy handing you the new ones, that was mostly related to depreciation in the water and sewer fund. So that's what the changes were. Those affect quite a few of the pages throughout the audit, so we wanted to make sure to get you guys the right the right audit here for the presentation. I'm gonna start on page 3, going through the audit, the statement of net position for the city. The first thing I like to look at for both the governmental and business type activities is comparing the total assets compared to the total current assets to total current liabilities. As you can see there, the governmental activities is very strong. Let's see, where do I have it here? That's, so this basically, comparing these two, tells you how many times the city could pay their short-term obligations over. Idaho Springs this year was at 20 times over in the governmental activities and 10 in the business type. Just for reference to last year was roughly 50% and business type was 28. Most of this is related to the projects that are ongoing, capital projects. That's what kind of took that down. And then obviously spending down cash, so assets are going to be a little lower as well. Another thing that I like to look at is the current liabilities compared to operating revenue. For the current year, it was 0.18 in the government activities and 0.10. You won't see this on the page. This is just kind of analysis that I do. That's pretty strong for a small local government like this. That's in line with what we would expect to see. And then the last thing I like to look at on this page is the total assets compared to total liabilities. So for governmental activities, that would be the 35 million compared to the total liabilities of 796. This just kind of tells you how leveraged the government is. For this year, the governmental activities were 0.02 and business type was 0.16. Now obviously next year that'll change when the bonds and things like that go into effect. That's going to go up obviously, but for this year that's very strong, very low leverage in both of those activities there. Skipping to the next page now, statement of activities. The biggest thing I like to look at here in my analysis is kind of looking at sales tax from this year, the 2.6 million, compared to prior years. Prior year, so the growth from 2016 to 2017 was 7.5%, and then from 2015 to 2016, just for reference, was 5.8. So again, 2 years of pretty good growth. Looking at sales tax kind of gives you the idea of what's going on in the community. Obviously, if people are buying more, there's going to be higher sales tax. So that's a good sign that we see there. 2 years of good growth in sales tax. And then just to touch on the fund balance there for the activity level, sorry. 34.2 million in government activities and 8.3 million in business type activities. Skipping to the next page now, the balance sheet for the governmental funds. Again, I like to look at the current, in this case, just total assets compared to the total liabilities in the governmental funds. And you can see there that it's very strong, 2.8 million to 63,000.
Can you just refresh us with the
Oh, sorry, not M4, I'm on page 4. So if you skip further back, down in the corner, so that's the MD&A.
Page 5.
I think that you guys are on, yeah.
Balance sheet is so it's after that.
It's after the MD&A, yep.
Balance sheet.
So keep going on your back a little ways. Yeah, I'm on right in this area right here. So as I was saying, the general fund looks like it's in a good position with 2.8 of total assets, 2.8 million of total assets, and 63,000 of current liabilities. So there's plenty of assets there to cover short-term obligations. Just kind of looking down below, also the unassigned fund balance in general fund, that's a strong number there. Compared to last year, you can see last year would be 788, and then this year was just over 2 million. So that's pretty good growth in unassigned. So this is any funds that you guys aren't restricted or assigned to use for some other capacity, so they're free to use there. And then the sales tax, obviously, at 4.13 million. That's also looking strong. On to the next page now. Let's see. Sorry, I'm gonna skip a few pages here. I'm gonna skip to page 7. So statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. or page 7 will be on the right page, right-handed page. The biggest thing that Tim and I like to look at here is the carryover in months. So this is your total fund balance at the bottom, 2.6 million. And we divide that by the total expenditures for the year, so the 2.227 million in the general fund. This equates to 1.17 years. Our advice is usually 3 to 9 months worth of reserves, so you guys are over that with the city here this year, so that's a strong number as well. The ramp fund,
So
obviously,
maybe we
that's,
can spend it down?
that, you gotta take that up with her.
That's right. I'm the gatekeeper.
That was a strong.
We get another
Our
flyer.
glory will remain
Wrong.
wide.
At least really.
She would have started flying.
Mayor's
in the
giving me a
sky
flyer
rather
for
than spending
Christmas.
any time.
So the ramp fund, obviously, that's gonna spin down, so we're not concerned about that. As you can see, the change there, 10 million. Sales tax, we actually grew that for 2017 by 626,000. So that's good, especially with the bonds coming in next year to have a little bit more of a cushion there. I'm gonna skip over to page 9 now, on the right-handed page, statement of net position for the proprietary funds. So again, like the general fund, what we like to look at here is, so instead of total net position, it's the unassigned or unrestricted in this case, unrestricted net position compared to total expenses for the year. So if you do that with the 902 in the water fund compared to the total expenditures, you have 1.11 years of reserves there, and then wastewater fund is 4.8 months. I'm going to skip now to the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for proprietary funds. The biggest thing with these income statements is looking at, with the proprietary funds, is looking at the operating loss or income. So for the water fund, it was 5,700 of a loss, and then 121,000 of a loss for wastewater. For comparison, since the depreciation expense is a big chunk of that, we like to take that out just to kind of see without that what the operating for that fund would be. So as you can see, if you took the depreciation expense for both of those out, both funds would be operating very well. And then if you skip to the next page, this is kind of more to back that up, the statement of cash flows. So if the fund is producing well and performing like it should be, the cash flows will be strong in the operating activities. So that first little section at the top there, it says cash flows from operating activities. The water fund was at 330,000 for the year, so that's a good number for a government this size. And then wastewater was 118. Well, that's not as strong. That's not as big of an issue for us. But those are both strong numbers for the two business type activities. Down towards the bottom, you can see that the wastewater fund actually lost money for the year. But if you go to the cash flows from capital and related financing activities, you can see that the city spent $322,000 on capital. So again, we're not really concerned with that. There's strong inflow of cash from the operating activities, so that fund is performing like it should be. The fiduciary fund's not really anything to go over there. Both of them grew a little bit compared to last year. As you can see, cash, restricted cash and investments went up to 11,000 for 2017. And then the next page will show you the carryover.
Can I ask that you give us page numbers instead of saying next page?
Yeah.
I think some of
Yeah,
us
that's right.
are going a little different.
So those fiduciary funds were on page 12 and 13.
Alright.
So the 11,000 there on page 12, the left page, and then 10,567 compared to last year's number. And then if you want to see a breakdown of restricted cash and what is in there, on page 22 it gives you a breakdown of cemetery conservation trust, which is restricted for parks obviously, Colorado Boulevard project, and then the rate stabilization and operations and maintenance reserve there. So that totals 6.1 million. And then the next couple pages, 23 and 24, will be the capital asset depreciation schedule for the year. and that's where you'll see the governmental funds, the 10.9 million of additions to construction in progress, so going on the street out here, and then 253 of other improvements and equipment. And then construction in progress and wastewater was 229 for the year. I'm on page 24 now, I'm sorry. And then improvements other than buildings for the water was 293, equipment 89, and wastewater 93. So that's all I really wanted to cover in the actual audit today. Like I said at the beginning, the city seems to be operating at a pretty good clip compared to other state and local governments that we do. Do you guys have any questions for me, possibly? Like I said,
Good, it's hard to have questions.
I like what I'm hearing.
That's when we're doing bad, so the questions would
In the
come.
front, it lists the assets of the city. How did it do property values on assets?
So that's measured at historical cost, so whatever the city paid for at the beginning, that's what it'll show, like the fixed assets, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, those will be at historical cost, those don't fluctuate with the market or anything like that, those just stay at whatever was paid for them.
So a reduction in cash then for Colorado Boulevard will be offset by the value of what's then in assets.
Well, yes, okay, so whatever cash went out for that project,
Yeah.
that's what will, yes, that was what, yes,
That equals out,
exactly.
you know,
Yep,
just for the sake of bookkeeping.
basically, yep, yep.
How does depreciation work for things like that?
So depreciation is usually measured, I mean, most state and local governments that we do is measured on a straight line, so basically you say it's 20 years, you just divide that asset by 20 years, and that's what the
Okay.
amortization is each year.
Okay.
There are other methods you can do, but, I mean, for a state and local government, there's no real need to do it
Okay.
any other way.
So the good portion of this 42 million in assets is funds, available funds, rather
What page are you
than
on
it's
there?
liquid assets mostly.
M1?
Really property, right?
What page are you on, Scott?
M1, it lists our assets at the top.
Oh, so
yeah.
this is, okay, so this is your,
Total.
the assets of the city, this is basically saying, that the assets were over and above the liabilities by 42 million in the governmental and business type activities combined for the year in 2017, so that's basically your equity. So not all of that will be unrestricted or unassigned that you can use, but most of it will be, except for the portion that's your net investment in capital assets.
Right. Property, like.
Or whatever's restricted, like restricted cash and restricted equity.
That's a pretty strong number.
Yeah. Yes, compared to other
So
governments, that's.
Colorado Boulevard has become an asset, now that we own it.
Yes. Now, in the future, you will have to maintain it, and a lot of that won't be considered an asset. Then once you spend money on that, like if you have to chip seal it or something like that, then it'll just be repair and maintenance.
Becomes
So,
an expense at that point.
Exactly.
Right.
So the first like expense that you guys have on it is gonna be an asset, but then after that, most of it will be repairs and maintenance.
Right.
Okay, you started to say compared to other governments, and I think I want to hear this.
Other governments in the area that we have as clients is what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I think he just wanted to hear you say we're doing better than everybody else.
Oh, no, I wouldn't.
Well, with the growth you guys have and the new bonds and everything like that, I mean, this area is growing, so that's a good sign, but.
All right, council, anything else for the auditor?
You guys don't have any concerns moving forward?
The biggest thing, I was talking with Sandy and Andy about this earlier, just we're gonna help Sandy with this, but getting the budget worksheet that she
Right.
uses to kind of set up for the year, get that ironed out, and then the budget, I think, will be a little closer. I was telling Andy that the budget was a little overdone in some of the, like the sales tax improvement and things like that. It was over budgeted probably for what was actually spent in there. But like I told him, I think you guys probably thought you were gonna be further along in some of these projects than you actually were for the year, so that contributed to that.
Right.
But I think if we fix that budget, that worksheet, and then that should be a lot
Is
better
this
done
another way of
forward.
saying we were a little too conservative in some areas?
Probably,
Okay.
yes.
All right,
A little too high of a budgeted
Yeah.
number for expenses, yeah.
gotcha.
Yep.
All right.
Sandy,
Like
is
always,
there-
just keep maintaining and watching over these guys, make sure she's not doing something nefarious over there.
Wow,
Oh.
Drew.
That's it, you have to worry about
Right.
that.
This guy? No.
Sandy, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No?
All right.
By the way, Sandy hasn't done anything nefarious. I just wanted to say that.
All right.
Thanks for the.
Good job.
Thank you, and a very,
We should be very proud to be in this position as financial position.
Thank you.
You're saying we're doing it better than a lot of small communities that you
Yeah,
serve.
quite a few of them, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Drew.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna go down to resolutions.
Oh, fall asleep, Bob.
well, I'm not gonna do that, but.
Do I have a motion to approve the audit?
Move to approve 2017 audit as presented.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Jeff Now.
Yes.
Jason Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Baldwin.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
John Curtis. Jason Segel.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move down to resolutions. Bob is departing. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 10, series 2018, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with Argo Holdings LLC concerning recreational development in and around the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park.
Yes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Jeff Now.
Yes.
Jason Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Baldwin. Mike Buick. John
Yes.
Curtis. Jason Segel.
Yes.
Right, we have an MOU.
I should have brought chocolate.
Huh?
I should have brought chocolate.
All right, we'll go down to,
Bob, back in?
Alan, would you send Bob back in?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Bob?
We don't need to hear anything from the finance officer, it's already been pretty much done, and administrator.
Mayor and council, you have my report before you with, one action item that is, was placed at the dais for.
Do I have a motion? Come on, Bob, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the quote from BSC Signs in the amount of $13,284.32 from account line item 21-00-6028 for the construction of a welcome sign at the roundabout. Clear Creek Economic Development Corporation has approved a $7,000 grant for the welcome sign, which brings the net cost to the city at $6,284.32.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Great job on
Yeah.
getting the costs down.
Did a great job.
Like the sign.
Between that and the grant from the CDBC is bringing down to $6,205. Okay, any more questions? Roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Jeff Now.
Yes.
Jason Stokes. Yes. Bob Baldwin.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
John Curtis. Jason Segel.
Yes.
Mayor, at the end of my report, if I may, there are a number of important upcoming events. Public meeting regarding the wastewater treatment plant coming up on the 4th. A meeting on the plans for the westbound Superior Shoulder Lane project, the express lane that will be constructed through the city on I-70 westbound. There's a public meeting at the Elks Club September 13th from 5 to 7. And there'll also be some information there as well about the plans for the Floyd Hill, reconstruction of I-70 through Floyd Hill there, at the base of Floyd Hill. And that's a huge project, much more costly than the express lane through the city going out to Empire. Probably the biggest event for the city, I think, is the ribbon cutting, celebrating the completion of Colorado Boulevard. That's September 20th at 5 p.m. right here at the bridge. We have the plaque that's been ordered commemorating the completion of this project. So we have the old plaque on the bridge and then the new plaque, which will be mounted before then. And the cookout and Take Back Our City event will be at Citizens Park immediately following that. I hope you all can just walk right over to Citizens Park and join us for the barbecue. And then, just a reminder, Dynamite Day is coming up at the end of this month, and it does include, the evening before, which will be a steak cook-off. And the city's a sponsor of that, so along with the chamber.
And I'm really expecting quite a few people to come to the ribbon cutting event. We've been mentioning it to CDOT folks since it was their road, that was the devolution with CDOT for the road, so, when we did phase two, not a whole lot of people showed up.
Yeah.
But, I'm expecting quite a few people at this one. I think this is really huge
Big
for the
deal.
community, and it's a big deal, so, we're actually trying to get the governor to come as well.
Cool.
How are we managing the cookout? Catered or?
Me and Bob cooked all the hot dogs.
Yeah. That's pretty good, though.
Mayor,
So
was
the
that-
board-
I think you have a volunteer
It's all
for
hot.
cooking hot. I think that's what I just heard.
Mayor, was
Who's
No, Bob and I's done the last three.
Last
Well,
year was
actually,
good. I enjoyed that.
Actually, 2 years ago, Danny and, Amy Tomlinson did it. So I'm gonna ask them to be the cooks again.
Well, if you have a big turnout, just maybe.
We probably need some
prepare.
more.
We
Yeah.
may need to up our game a little
Yeah,
bit.
we may need to
Might
do
wanna
another
think
grill
about
out.
how you do it.
And one other item, Mayor, if I may, Benjamin is here from the Colorado Southern Railway Society, and in my report, you'll notice that we met with him, and he and his, organization would like to do some, maintenance on the train and the, coach, on the locomotive and the coach. And this will take place over a couple of weekends in October. And, we do have money budgeted for, the train, and that was primarily there for any grants you might apply for. And I'm going ahead and approving this money, but I just want to make you aware that that's happening, and he does have a description of the work they'll be doing in my report. Benjamin is here, if you have any questions you want to ask him, or Benjamin, do you have anything you want to say?
Not if nobody has any questions.
So I have a question. At one point, this is maybe about a year ago, there was discussion of relocating the train for a much more thorough remodeling
Yes.
expedition.
Yes.
What's the status of that?
We're still working on that. It's just a matter of scheduling and planning
Okay.
with the other parties involved.
So this would be something that would happen regardless of what your plans are with the relocation of the, okay.
This sounds like it's exterior, they were talking about doing interior work,
Okay,
right?
yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
And remember, we were gonna actually get it pulled down there for free. There was something that came about that Benjamin had worked on, that we're gonna get the hold of.
Okay,
Bringing it down.
cool. So this will happen now, that's gonna happen later.
Yes, that's right.
Alright. Good to know.
Thanks
That's
for
just
being
an
here.
update. Andy approved $1,000. It's nothing we have to vote on or go through council, so.
Alright.
All right, thanks, Benjamin.
Thank you.
All right.
Fantastic.
We're ready to see the final outcome.
Thanks a lot.
We're gonna roll that thing right up to the interchange up there.
And my staff report for your review with no request for action.
Any questions for Diane? If you notice, if you look around right up there, and in the office, we do now have some security cameras for City Hall.
Oh, cool.
So.
Are any of those pointing towards the train out there?
Of course they are.
Cool.
That one still needs to be installed, the project, I hope we get wrapped up, I'm sorry.
Andy, you just blew it, we're on camera.
Alright, so Sonnenberg, we need to give him some training on
You're gonna have to
discretion.
camp out at the, right, you gotta camp out at the train for the next 5 weeks.
Operational security.
And he needs a gun too.
I tried.
No, ooh,
I tried
that's
Sonnenberg.
So this is all recorded in high resolution, all that sort of.
All right.
I assume.
Thanks, Diane. Any- No questions for Diane? And how's Wonder working out?
Great.
Good.
Good. Wonderful. Good.
What's her last name? Wonder Woman.
I told her that day she married Stevie Wonder, she'd be Wonder Wonder.
Official city business.
All right.
One before.
PD.
Mayor and council, here, Chief Malonka, staff report, and we have no items of request for action.
Rich, what is your official title?
I have 6. I have it's detective.
Okay.
That's my official.
My apologies for addressing you
You're
earlier.
fine.
It's hard to keep up with the change.
It changes.
All right, anybody have any questions for, Sonnenberg? All right. We'll move down to.
Oh, actually, I do. I don't know if you, the photos that I believe Chief Malenka took of the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the area as where the debris is and whether or not we're able to, get tow trucks and dumpsters up there?
I have not. My understanding, as the chief explained it to me the other day, we would be able to get recovery vehicles up there to remove that.
Okay.
How difficult that would be, I don't have firsthand knowledge.
Okay.
I wasn't with them when they went up there, but
Okay.
It would be accessible to get vehicles.
Okay.
Take that out.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, it's gonna be on the city's dollar.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's obviously quite a bit of debris up there.
And this is where
So
there
it's
is,
just a
this
matter
is
of
where
whether
the
or not
shooting
it's
range is
accessible.
up there, isn't it?
Yes, it's somebody's homemade shooting range that they, I mean, they got the cars in, so there has to be a pretty logical way to get them out, but
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
that tends to be expensive with recovery vehicles.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions? All right,
Can
we
you
will.
track these vehicles down to the most
Yes.
last owner?
There is a method that we can use to attempt to track down, the owners of the vehicle. Unfortunately, they can say I sold it to John Smith.
Right.
And I have no way to find John Smith.
Yeah.
So when we get them down, we will attempt to do that, to try to track them down who they belong to, so we can try and, hold them accountable to that. But, until we get there, I won't know whether it's, feasible or not.
Right. All right.
All right, very good. Public water and wastewater.
Mayor and council, I'll refer to my staff report and no request for action. When you do that kind of stuff, Mr. Mayor, I gotta move my papers around. It's not super convenient. I'm working for you, John.
All right, any questions for Dan? Except how's the project going down there?
It's going good, about to wrap up doing punch list stuff, probably the next couple weeks, and then should be good to go. Same with the water plant, we're punch listing for the third skid, and that's up and running.
Get back into routine operation.
Well, we hope so.
That'd be nice.
All right. Thanks, Dan, good work. That's,
I'll refer to my staff report. I do have one request for action and one question. The request for action is to allow the mayor to sign additional time for HDR construction management and design services. At this time, it does not involve any money. It's just their current contract expires the end of August, and this would extend it towards the end of the year.
What is the purpose of it extending a construction
It's more or
management
less
contract?
for their purposes, HDRs, because legally by their contract, they can't work past the date on their
Right.
contract. So it just extends their time.
So that how does that incorporate with the penalty for not being done on time?
Well,
Is that for the construction?
That is
yeah,
for
that has nothing to
construction.
do with our
Okay.
managing company.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not for HDR.
And all they really have is.
That was for ACC.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
punch list items, we see the women in mining going from the visitor center, I think that's gonna turn out really nice.
Oh, is that what that's,
There'll be
okay.
some flowers and recognition or memorial for Chichi Bell.
Oh,
that
okay.
They're doing that.
Okay. I was wondering.
There's gonna be a dry, what do they call it, dry creek?
Right, but
Okay.
for the most part, other than the women in mining sign, Orchard was by the,
Yeah.
What's
Much
the
more
task
prominent
order
now.
5 and 6?
That's what the,
The task order 5 and 6.
What is that?
that's for just a time extension for construction management services and design and as I said, at this time, it doesn't involve any additional funds, it's just time.
So let's go ahead and do the, motion.
I'll move to approve the mayor to sign a time extension agreement to HDR Engineering for task orders 5 and 6.
Do I have a second? Motion and a second, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Majority passes, and then John also has something else in his staff report that he's gonna ask council about.
Mayor and council, I budgeted for the sweeper this year, the final cost was $209,000, which left us $30,000 in that account. So I would like to explore the possibility of purchasing a larger mower for the Parks Department. And just looking online, I haven't really gathered any estimates yet, $10,000 to $15,000 is approximately the mower.
So a commercial riding
A
mower type thing?
Yes, with a 61 inch, so that,
And you can see the grass is really starting to come.
Yeah, I
through.
can see that.
It's nice down there.
so if that's acceptable to council, I will proceed.
Do we need a formal motion on that, Andy, you think? Yeah, if we're gonna spend 10 to 15, yeah, let's do a motion.
He's just asking for
The right to
the
explore.
right to
bids.
explore.
He's gonna buy one.
Well-
Out of this year's budget.
Well, why don't we wait until he finds it and then make a
I
motion?
can bring it back to
Yeah,
council
we'll
when we
see
get
that.
to
Yeah,
this.
he was just looking for direction.
All right.
I think that sounds great.
Um,
I can cut pretty straight lines there, John, so going on.
So we're gonna go down to mayor and council. Tracy has received a letter about VRBOs, and I'm gonna allow her to read that to council to kind of hear the position of somebody. I haven't even read it, so I have no idea.
So Mayor and Council, I'm receiving a lot of dialogue from all over the city about concerns for Airbnbs. This is from Mary and John Mangum, who reside at 2827 Riverside Drive. To the city, a novel concept which is not new. It has been going on for years, but its popularity is coming back. We have experienced this with a new neighbor in our Riverside townhomes on Riverside Drive on the east end of town. These new people in the community are welcome, but we have experienced the effects of timeshares. We have been told that they have until 11 a.m. to do exactly what they want and park where they want. We have talked to the HOA, but no rules have been made in the city for these types of businesses. Will they have to be licensed? Will they be paying the same sales tax as motels? Where are the people going to park? We've had up to 5 extra cars in our small parking lot that we share with others in our complex. With Riverside Drive, not a wide street, nor does it have a lot of parking. We know that Riverside Drive will be under construction soon. Riverside has enough room for a car and a half as it is. We want to welcome this new neighbor and their business of timeshares, but Idaho Springs does not have a lot of parking space in the whole town. We are concerned for this, for the winter time, as for too many vehicles in a small lot, it will be impossible to get a plow through if the street's blocked with winter coming. There's been a lot of negative talk throughout the town. Take this for a positive for the future, but realize that if ground rules are not set, the town will be run over and defeated. We need to have places for people to live in all year round. They have to bus employees because there's no housing for them. This is a delicate balance. It's hard to get good jobs that pay enough to afford and live here. Please decide soon before there are too many. Thank you, John Mary Mangum.
Does anybody, do we know where the planning commission is on that? They're supposed to,
I contacted Kate. She said they're close. I was supposed to actually call her tonight, so they're looking at it and they're not far off. But this is really starting to
they've
bubble
been
in
working
town.
on that a long time. We need a recommendation from them pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm in an area about 10 or 12 houses. One is already turned. There's another 3. 2 are getting ready to literally move out of their houses to move to another area to flip their houses to vacation rentals because of the income stream.
So.
And I'm having quite a few people call about
it's-
what the regulations are now, which are, you get a business
So what I
license.
suggest is we get a moratorium in place right now.
Yeah.
So we get a moratorium, no more, that we know of, so anybody that calls, just says it's a moratorium, they can't have it. And then we don't even, how many licenses do we have, business license for?
That's, the majority are not licensed.
Correct. Probably 5, if that.
5 licenses, and we both have.
Business
How are we
license.
gonna notify them? I mean, well, you can
We're gonna have
discover
to
them
go,
on
we're
these
gonna have to get
websites.
Jonathan to go online and start tapping into them and
Yeah,
calling
I heard
them.
that
And when they say, oh,
somebody-
yeah, we got it, then we can
They
go
should
and
have to
start
have
them.
What about county regulations? Are there any in existence for
County has,
that cover?
Georgetown has,
Right.
but county won't cover our local.
Right.
So, and I think
But
they're
how is-
mimicking and looking at Georgetown's.
Does anybody know how, like, if I were to go on Airbnb and try to set up my property, like, how does that process work? I mean,
It's
like,
easy.
Is there
You
any?
just go on there and set it up. You don't have to be tied
So
to
you
a
don't got-
city or anything. But at the minimum, we should be requiring business licenses, and we
Inspections,
should be
fire.
registering these homes.
Yeah.
And in addition, look at their water and sewer rates,
Right,
which hasn't been addressed.
Because
yet.
those will
That's a
be
good point.
businesses now.
that's true.
They should have to go on business rate.
They have a multiplier now, and basically what happens, their rates are double for the flat fee, the flat rate.
So and this is probably, I'm hoping being already discussed with the planning commission, but let's say somebody sets up their property as an Airbnb, is there a process that we can implement that, we send the building inspector in and make sure that they haven't done alterations outside of permits, to accommodate such?
Another animal
Well,
life.
Cause
I don't know if
that's a
more of
major
a
concern
safety
too,
thing
somebody's
than
just
anything.
doing alterations.
Yeah, they
Focus
actually
on-
should be inspected for, I think it was an Airbnb, you'd have to have a firewall between the kitchen and the
Well,
rooms.
hasn't Safe Built been here talking about that very thing in the past?
So I don't know if they're going that extensively, but the focus appears to be on public safety, which is where it
Yeah,
should be, as
absolutely.
the first measure. And so they are talking about inspections regarding fire. I mean, maybe not as
Right.
extensive as ripping the house apart and going back, because probably every house in Idaho Springs is in violation.
Well, is
in terms of,
any
you know,
place that's allowed,
in terms of occupancy.
Andy, you've got the fire background, is that true?
Yep.
That's where you started with the fire authority. I think.
Yeah,
Well, we gotta
If
know
they're
which ones they
registered
are.
with the
If they're-
city, then they should have to go.
Come up with an estimate that we had about 30 that had already converted in that.
I'm gonna say
Those
there's more
ones
than
are-
that.
Well, you gotta remember, I don't think they're in the city limits, which city
Yeah.
limits is all that we can
Well,
restrict.
no, what I'm saying here in town. we're
Oh, no,
only 30.
I think when that 30 came up, I think
It was
that was,
everything.
that was there.
Oh,
I
that
think that
was-
was in Idaho Springs, you pull it up and it's Idaho Springs going to Fall River Road.
We're Fall River,
Oh,
right.
It's not hard to tell, you can go right to these websites and see what's
Right,
in
right.
Idaho
We'll
Springs. They're
get-
gonna give the little.
We'll get Jonathan on that to try to.
Well, some of them don't give you the address. You have to like
Call them.
request the address and all that, so it might take a little bit of legwork, but,
A little bit.
If I could bring it to the attention of the council, the county just, released a website for short-term rentals for people who have short-term rentals to go and go through the entire, permitting process and whatever steps they have to take to ensure that they're up to code, they're compliant and everything. I'm not sure what all steps are involved, but I know that that website was just released by the county. So, maybe a resource for the council to explore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Detective Sonnenberg, do you know anything about, criminal activity that's happening in these vacation rental properties? Is that something that
Not
we should?
specifically,
Okay.
we generally, I wouldn't say generally, but we don't often ask, is this your house?
Right.
We show up because there's an emergency.
Right.
When we handle the situation or the residents, it does come up, but typically speaking, it's not an asked question
Okay.
of whether this is a rental or you live
Right.
here or you're just passing through or whatever.
That's something that we should direct the chief to tell staff, the officers to, that question.
The two primary complaints I'm hearing are the fact that they're not enforcing any occupancy limits because there aren't any, and they're piling in cars in areas where it's really inconveniencing long-term residents.
Right.
And then there's no oversight in terms of on-site management or nearby management. And it's just a free-for-all, it's like the Wild Wild West.
Well, and the other issue is, people coming in from, let's say Florida, and they don't understand that they should leave trash out for the bears and things like that.
No handbooks, no.
These are the kind of issues that should be implemented within our own local regulations.
And I know a lot of Airbnbs and vacation rentals have a book. This is what you gotta follow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we
if
need
you're
one
not
of those.
compliant, you could be,
We need one of those books.
we'll get Alan to start working on that. Oh, he's not. Okay.
In fact, but I think maybe a moratorium right away would be a really good idea.
Well, we just have to get Carmen to draw up a resolution for a
Yeah,
I
moratorium
think that's
on
really
any vacation
smart.
rentals, and then when anybody calls, you can say, we're not accepting
And then
anymore.
make sure we publish it in the paper.
And we could do that too.
As a matter of fact.
Well, once we do it, I don't wanna.
Have you gotten some calls regarding, restrictions or rules on the, VRBOs?
I have, and I've told them what I know from attending some of the planning commission meetings.
Yeah.
You know, what they could potentially, cause if I issue a business license now,
Yeah.
and say in 6 months, there's a, ordinance passed, then they've got to adhere to the ordinance. So I do try to tell them that we're constantly working on rules and regulations, and when that happens, you're gonna have to abide by it.
Okay. Yeah, this is.
Okay, so
And then we go, obviously we would need to find out how many are actually operating versus how many are licensed through the city.
And see how many are in the direct city.
All right. The town of South Lake Tahoe, for what it's worth, it was on one of the news magazines the other night. They were so totally frustrated with the parking situation that first time parking ticket for out of town folks there was $1,000. And now that's pretty bad.
Could you imagine writing $1,000 parking ticket?
I've read $1,000 tickets. Yeah, it's a pleasant experience, to say the least.
That person's gonna have some real choice words for the clerk when they come in.
Okay, anything else, council? It is 7:55, I can't see it up there. And it's wrong. Meeting adjourned.
We should hire him.
I'll need to talk to everybody. So I'll be calling you. We're out of the meeting. Good.
I was on ice when my wife was
See, and that's one of the,
acting up a little bit. Using a lot.
one of the recommendations.
She started doing my again with what's her job. I which is very early. Playing on the way we
All
go.
Virginia is what, so there's a huge thing.
And you're going down doing that. That's my fun.
Yeah, on the
How are you, Sandy? How are the girls? Doing good? Awesome. I haven't seen the mister for a haircut, but I haven't gotten it. We go to down in Denver. The strangest thing, me and her husband, like once a month, yet the same day. And he was always performing. So I come in and okay, it's a scheduled day. Did you pay for your haircut, right? We had done that, yeah. Tell him that. Good to see you.
First walk in the road.
So I'll let my neighbors know. So I